Welcome to the deep dive. This is where we take source material, dig into it, and pull out the key insights fast so you can get really well informed.
Yep, cutting through the noise.
Exactly. Today we're diving into the psychology of influence. Our source is a PDF called Paradoxes of Persuasion.
Sounds intriguing.
It is. Our mission is to uncover some, surprising facts, maybe powerful techniques about how we influence people.
And how we get influenced ourselves, right? Often without even noticing.
Right. Expect some things that might seem a little backwards, counterintuitive.
Always the most interesting kind.
Okay, let's unpack this. Let's start with maybe some direct ways our requests can shape what happens next.
Okay.
Like asking someone for a small favor. Apparently, it can make them like you more. It's called the Benjamin Franklin effect. Seems odd, doesn't it?
It really does on the surface. But it taps into our brain's need for consistency.
Consistency? How so?
Well, if someone does something nice for you, like a favor, their brain kind of goes, I must like this person. Otherwise, why would I have helped them?
So it justifies the action after the fact by creating the feeling.
Precisely. It's less about direct manipulation up front and more about how we internally, align our feelings with what we've already done.
That need for consistency. That sounds like it links to the foot in the door technique, too.
Definitely. Get someone to agree to something really small first.
Like signing a petition or something minor.
Yeah, exactly. Then they're much more likely to agree to a bigger related request later. They want to seem consistent with that initial yes.
And the flip side is the door in the face.
Right. You start with a huge, kind of unreasonable request you fully expect them to reject.
Okay.
Then, when they say no, you follow up with your actual smaller request, and suddenly it seems way more reasonable in comparison.
So they're more likely to agree to the second one.
Both techniques are really playing on these, built-in psychological shortcuts related to consistency and how we compare things. Often happens totally subconsciously.
Okay, this is fascinating. But let's shift to maybe more subtle stuff. How communication shapes connections.
Yeah, the really nuanced interactions.
Like using someone's name. Consistently, I mean. The source calls it name power. Makes people feel recognized, valued, builds rapport.
Oh, absolutely. Hearing your own name, it grabs your attention, makes you feel seen, central to that moment. It's a simple but powerful connector.
And what about affect labeling? Just naming an emotion someone's feeling.
This one's huge. When someone's clearly, say, frustrated or anxious, and you gently acknowledge it, like, you seem really frustrated right now.
Yeah. What does that do?
It's incredibly validating. It signals you see them, you understand at least partially what they're going through. It often helps them process the emotion, sort of takes the wind out of its sails, brings a bit of clarity.
That makes sense. It feels different than just ignoring it or telling them not to feel that way.
Totally different. It builds trust.
It reminds me of another point. The difference between asking for advice versus an opinion. Subtle, but the impact seems big.
Very big. Asking for advice positions the other person as wise, invites collaboration. It says, lend me your expertise. That fosters closeness.
Whereas asking for an opinion, that can sometimes feel like you're asking for judgment. Create distance.
It can, yeah. Advice implies partnership. Opinion can imply assessment. It's a subtle shift in framing.
Okay, and then there's the because effect. This one's almost funny.
Yeah, it is pretty amazing. Basically, just adding the word because to a request makes people much more likely to comply.
Even if the reason after because is kind of weak or obvious.
Even then, like that classic study, excuse me, may I use the Xerox machine because I have to make copies?
This is not really a reason.
Nope. But compliance shot way up compared to just asking without the because. The word itself signals justification incoming, and our brains often just accept it without thinking too hard.
Wow. Okay, one more paradox here.
Yeah.
The but you are free technique.
Yes. Adding something like, but obviously don't feel obligated, or, but you are free to decide after you make a request.
And that makes people more likely to say yes. That feels backwards.
It does, but it works by respecting their autonomy. When people feel pushed or cornered, their instinct is to resist.
Reactance.
Exactly. By explicitly saying you're free, you remove that feeling of pressure. They feel their choice is truly their own, which paradoxically makes them more open to agreeing.
Okay, let's shift one last time. Some really surprising things where, like, silence, or even just our own minds, are the influencers.
Right. The internal landscape and nonverbal stuff.
That the power pause.
Yeah.
Ask a question and just wait.
Complete silence. It creates this vacuum, this social discomfort.
And the other person feels compelled to fill it.
Often, yeah. They might explain more, reveal things they wouldn't have just to break that tension. It's very effective.
And that relates to negotiation silence, right? Make an offer, then shut up.
Same principle. After you state your price or terms, silence puts immense pressure on the other side. They often start talking, maybe revealing their limits or making concessions just to ease that pressure.
Okay, turning inward now. The spotlight effect.
This is relatable for most people, I think. We tend to massively overestimate how much other people are noticing us, our mistakes, our appearance, whatever we're self-conscious about.
When really, most people are wrapped up in their own stuff.
Pretty much. Their spotlight is usually pointed firmly back at themselves. We think we're on stage, but the audience is mostly looking elsewhere.
That's actually kind of comforting.
It can be. And then there's the illusory truth effect.
This one feels important today. Repeat something often enough.
And people start believing it's true just because it feels familiar. Familiarity gets mistaken for accuracy by the brain. Doesn't matter if it's actually factual or not initially.
That's slightly scary. Shows how repetition itself can be a powerful tool of influence or misinformation.
It really does. It highlights how our perception of truth isn't always based on rigorous fact-checking, but sometimes just on, repeated exposure.
Okay, last one. The peak end rule. This is about memory, right?
Yeah, how we remember experiences. It's not based on the average of the whole thing, or even how long it lasted.
So what does shape the memory?
Mostly two things. The most emotionally intense point, that's the peak, whether good or bad, and how the experience ended.
The peak and the end. Those disproportionately color our entire memory of an event.
Exactly. A long, mostly okay vacation with a terrible ending might be remembered more negatively than a shorter, mixed one with a fantastic final day.
If we try to tie all this together, what's the big takeaway?
Well, I think it shows just how much our decisions, perceptions, and even memories are shaped by these psychological undercurrents. Things like context, comparison, consistency needs, nonverbal cues.
They're constantly at play, often beneath our conscious awareness.
Yeah.
Understanding these paradoxes of persuasion isn't just about learning tricks, is it?
Not at all. It's about gaining a deeper awareness of fundamental human behavior, how we interact, how we make sense of things, how we connect.
Yeah, it's a tool, not just for influencing maybe, but definitely for understanding the world and the interactions happening around you with maybe greater insight.
Absolutely. Knowing this stuff helps you navigate situations better, whether you're the one asking or the one being asked. It helps you recognize what might be influencing you.
Okay, so for your provocative thought this week, start trying to notice these things in action. In your own conversations, when you watch ads, when you reflect on an experience, how often are these subtle principles like the because effect or the peak end rule actually shaping things?
Just observe. You might be really surprised at how pervasive they are.